Have you ever wondered if you have what it takes to become super rich? Do you want to know the timing of when you might move into greater prosperity? Would you like to know how astrology can improve your financial condition? Hello everybody, I'm Ksenia and welcome to this extra special video exploring the signatures in a chart that indicate you have the capacity to go from rags to riches in your lifetime. This is such an incredible topic to explore in astrology, and I am so glad you've joined me for this magical little piece of financial astrology. Now, the following video you're about to see is just one of 14 videos in my Financial Astrology Masterclass. It's available now at the Learn Astrology page of my website. If this video tickles your interest, and I hope it does, I'd love for you to join me for this fabulous Learn at Your Own Pace Masterclass in Financial Astrology, where I will answer all the questions that I've just posed to you. And guess what? There couldn't be a better time to do this course. Everyone who purchased the Masterclass in Financial Astrology before the 10th of May 2026 will get a free My Money Astrology report from me, exploring your chart and the best ways to personally make money using your planets. What's not to love about that? You know, the Financial Astrology Masterclass will explore such topics as: does your chart have the potential to make money, and how much? How to make money using your Venus placement in the chart. Traditional medieval astrology signatures for making money. How we can make money using the whole of your astrology chart. What are the special signatures when you're working with the stock market to understand? What are the astronomical cycles and how do they affect us making money? What is the astrological timing for making money? We've even got a video all about lottery wins and good fortune in an astrology chart, as well as a video looking at career and profession when it comes to making money. One of my favorite videos in this masterclass is the video on special degrees and degrees of wealth and bankruptcy. This is a fascinating class. For example, did you know that the 29th degree of Capricorn or Cancer can indicate that you will become extremely wealthy? Now, if you look closely at the video you're about to see, you will observe that the chart we discuss in this video actually has that 29th degree of Capricorn Cancer signature. Even though I don't actually mention it in this particular video, you know, this particular video is focused on a chart's capacity to go from poverty or rags to riches. Those special degrees that I just mentioned, Capricorn, Cancer, 29 degrees, actually indicate extreme wealth regardless of whether you start life poor or you start life rich. But you know what? There are also degrees of bankruptcy and poverty. I wonder if you've got any of those in your astrology chart. So before we jump right in, it's important to know that these concepts are for people who have a little bit of astrological knowledge under their belt already. As the name suggests, this is a masterclass. It's a component of the advanced level of the Royal Stars Academy. Now, if you would like to learn the foundations of good astrology with me, you would be so welcome to expand your heart and mind through the introductory level of the Royal Stars Academy if you're just starting out on your astrological journey, just like hundreds of students are already doing through my classes right now. Learn how to understand your life and discover how to work hand in hand with the universe to create your best life, simply by learning to apply the majesty and power of astrology through the Royal Stars Academy if you're interested. So now, without any further ado, let's discover if you're going to go from rags to riches. friends. This is one of my fun little astrology financial videos. I hope you enjoy these few little videos that I'm sharing with you before we dig into some of the meaty stuff with regard to financial astrology. And what we're talking about in this video is chart indications for big leaps in fortune in somebody's lifetime. You could consider it rags to riches type of energy. Going from, one state of being one sort of, if you want to use the term class of life to a different class of life. And I'm going to be using the chart of Elvis Presley to give an example, if you like, to this kind of energy. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the chart of Elvis Presley. It's very, very interesting. He, up until the age of 21, was from a very, very poor cultural background in Mississippi. And then at age 21 was discovered, rose to prominence for his great musical performance prowess. And then, interestingly, that was halfway through his lifetime because he died at age 42, so young, so very, very young. And so he had half his life in poverty and struggle. Father went to prison. Twin brother died at birth. Difficulty making ends meet, very poor upbringing. And then into great fame, into great wealth, into great success at age 21, dying at 42. So half life in poverty, half life with great success and a leap in fortune. So we'll be looking at Elvis's chart very shortly. But I'm going to give you some dot points. You might want to write these dot points down. It's certainly worth noting these. If you have 4 or more of these combinations, or if you're doing a reading for somebody and they have 4 or more of the combinations that I'm going to talk about here, it can indicate that their life may have this rags to riches effect. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go from abject poverty to, being a multi-billionaire, a slumdog millionaire kind of story. But what it is talking about is being able to, like I said, lift from one state of financial being to up the rung of the ladder, so to speak. So let's take a look at this. I'm sure we're all hoping that we have these kinds of energies, 4 or more of them in our charts. So the first thing that we want to look for is the first house lord, the ruler of the first house. Where is the planetary ruler of the first house? If it is in the 9th house, there's one activation. If it is in the 10th house, that's another possibility for activation. If it is in the 11th house, that is another possibility for activation. So first house lord in the 9th, 10th, or 11th houses. And of course, if it's in strong dignity, all the more power to that particular combination. Next dot point. We want to see if the 9th house lord, the 10th house lord, or the 11th house lord is in the first house. If that's the case, and especially if it's in strong dignity, that's another little tick in your box. Now, of course, you can have more than one. You could have the 9th house lord, the 10th house lord, and the 11th house lord all in the first house. That's 3 ticks. So each of those represents a tick in your little bag of ticks. I like to use that terminology for adding up our points, so to speak. Now, the first one I mentioned, first house lord, and the 9th, 10th, or 11th, you can only have that once because there's only one first house lord. We're using traditional rulerships only here. Don't use Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto. These are Vedic techniques, and they only ever use the visible planets. And we're living in a visible Earth manifesting reality. So it's the visible, tangible, see with the naked eye planets that we utilize here. So as I said, first dot point, first house lord in the 9th, 10th, or 11th. There's only one first house lord, so you can only potentially get one tick with that combination. But point number 2, having the 9th, 10th, or 11th house lord in the first, you've got 3 options there, 3 potential different planets that can be in the first house to trigger this potential. So point number 2 could give you up to 3 activations. Moving along, point number 3. If you have your first house lord in a conjunction with the ninth, 10th, or 11th house lord. Now, you could have the first house lord in a conjunction with the ninth house alone. Ninth house lord, I should say, alone. That would be one activation. But what if the first house lord is in a stellium with the ninth, 10th, or 11th house lord? Well, that's 3 activations. Boom, 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 right there. So again, keep that sort of thing in mind. And of course, the dignity of these house lords may come into play in terms of how extreme the manifestation is, the potential is. But even in bad dignity, it's still an activating factor, okay? But obviously, the stronger the dignity, the more potential there is for high level of manifestation. The next dot point is having a Parivartana yoga, and this is known as a mutual exchange in Western astrology, for those who need that clarification. A Parivartana yoga forming between the 9th, 10th, or the 11th house lords, but the especially strong is when it's between the 10th and the 11th house lords. So let's use an example. A Parivartana yoga is when the ruler of the 10th house goes into the 11th house and the ruler of the 11th house goes into the 10th house. They trade houses. That's a mutual exchange. That's a Parivartana yoga. So any kind of mutual exchange between the 9th house lord and the 10th house lord when they swap signs, or the 10th house lord and the 11th house lord when they swap signs, or the 9th house lord and the 11th house lord when they swap signs. So Parivartana yoga, mutual exchange between the 9th, 10th and 11th house lords is an activating factor. You could have maybe a couple of those. It doesn't necessarily limit you to one in that instance. Now, next point, the 10th and 11th house lords linked in some way. So they might be conjunct together in an auspicious house. You know, for example, in Vedic astrology, the auspicious houses are house number 5, house number 9, also house number 1, and the Kendra houses, the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th. So, you know, this would be very auspicious if you had the 11th house lord and the 10th house lord conjunct in those houses. I mean, even if the 10th and 11th house lords were conjunct, but not in an auspicious house, can still bring a lot of positivity. So, you know, but obviously it's stronger in those powerful houses, lucky houses. Another way that you might have the 10th and 11th house lord linked together in some manner is by them being in a trine aspect to one another. So they're, you know, making that Tajika Vedic aspect by trine to each other can be very beneficial as well. Off the top of my head, any other linkages, you know, you wouldn't consider a square. Obviously, we've already talked about being in conjunction together. That's obviously one way they can exhibit, but any of the hard aspects like square or opposition, you wouldn't consider that to be auspicious. Okay, so a link between the 10th and 11th house lord that is generally considered to be auspicious. House placement, you can also consider it to be positive if there's a conjunction of the two lords in a non-auspicious house. And also a trine between the two planets. Okay, moving along. Next point. The 10th house lord of your natal chart. So it's known as the D1 chart, the Rashi chart in Vedic astrology. So the 10th house lord in exaltation or great directional strength, we've talked about these things, in the D10 chart, the Varga chart, the 10th Varga. So you do check that. We've explored some of these Vedic techniques of looking at directional strength and looking at Varga charts. So check your 10th house lord if it's in exaltation or great directional strength in the D10 chart. This shows often a tendency for success and rising up financially through self-employment, through your own entrepreneurship. So very powerful. The other thing we want to perhaps look at is an excellent Navamsha D9 chart. And how would we tell if a Navamsha is excellent? Well, we know that according to some Vedic teachers, we don't analyze aspects in a Navamsha chart. So we're not looking at that. We're looking at dignities. placements of the majority of your visible planets. I wouldn't really even consider Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto. They don't consider that in the Vedic system, generally speaking. So a good Navamsha is having the visible planets in good dignities. The majority would give you a good Navamsha chart. The Karakas of the 10th house, we've talked about Karakas in our Vedic astrology section. The Karakas of the 10th house in the natal chart being in good dignity or good directional strength in the natal chart. It's another point. Now, also, we've looked at the dashes in Vedic astrology. Now, if you at age 25, or whoever you're analyzing a chart for, at age 25 is in a strong and powerful Mahadasha, main dasha season, with all three Mahadashas that follow on from the dasha you're in at age 25 being strong and well dignified, even if they're malefics, that's considered to be beneficial and giving you advantage going forward in your life. So just to repeat, at age 25, if you're in a strong, healthy Mahadasha, so let's say you're in the Mahadasha of Jupiter and Jupiter in your chart is located in Sagittarius, that's a strong Jupiter. And so you're in a healthy Mahadasha at age 25, and every subsequent Mahadasha after that one for up to 3. So you've got Jupiter as number 1, Saturn, Mercury, Ketu, let's say in that example, the following Mahadashas are all strong, powerful, and well dignified. Even if they're malefics, you will have a rise in prosperity throughout your lifetime. Now, there are chart significations using Vedic astrology. There are a couple of other things you can add into this if you would like to, if you're into other occult practices. And what I want to mention here is actually palmistry. Now, you might say, oh, hang on, Ksenia, I didn't sign up for a palmistry course. I'm not going to teach you a palmistry course. But these I find very, very fascinating. So if you don't want to include these in your analysis of the potential of a person to have a great financial rise in life, then don't include them. But I'm popping them here for those of you who do want to include it because it's just really cool and interesting. So palmistry significations. When you hold your hand flat, if your thumb, and we're not counting fingernails in this instance, okay? Forget my long claws. Palmistry significations. If your thumb, the tip here of your thumb, not the fingernail, if your thumb is longer than the second bend in your pointy finger, when you're holding it flat and normal, so the second bend, here is the first bend in your pointy finger. Here is the second bend, where it bends like that, obviously. So second bend, if your thumb is longer than the second bend in your pointy finger, obviously I don't have that, that is a signification for leadership, one of the significations. There are others in the chart, of course, but in palmistry, that's one thing that they look for. Obviously, not for me in that case. Another palmistry signification that you might like to include is your little finger. If when you hold your palm flat, and we're not bending it to make it work here, we're just holding it flat. If the tip of your little finger, that here, if the tip of your little finger is longer than the bend of your the first bend of your ring finger, so first little joint of your ring finger, that can bring you fortune. Now, for me, just on the tip. If it was largely over the tip, palmistry, over that joint, I should say, palmistry would suggest that I would be quite fortunate, quite wealthy, having the tip pretty much on the bend of my ring finger is probably a good sign that I will do okay in life. But that is just, call it superstitious if you like, call it woo-woo, call it interesting, call it real, whatever you want. But I just found those things kind of fun to add in here to this video. So now, bear with me while I share the screen. We're going to have a look at Elvis Presley's chart because it does contain some of these things that we've been talking about. I can't tell you much. I can't tell you much about Elvis's thumb or his little finger, but we can look at Elvis's chart. So here is Elvis's birth chart, and we've got him Sagittarius rising, very charismatic person naturally. And of course, he has his first house lord in the 12th house. Now, that's not one of the combinations that we need to be seeing for this rags to riches kind of influence. So that's not very helpful. Jupiter ruling Sagittarius in the 12th house. I'm just noticing I could tell you so many things off on a tangent about Elvis's chart that I'm noticing as I'm just looking at it here, but we're going to focus on the financial things, and maybe I'll save the other topics for a different video. But okay, let's look now at Elvis's 11th house, 10th house, and 9th house in whole sign astrology. Well, we've got the Sun ruling Leo, the 9th house. We've got Mercury ruling Virgo, 10th house. And we've got Venus ruling Libra as the 11th house. Where are all those planets? Down here together. Now, remember in Vedic astrology, a conjunction is when they all sit in the same sign. You know, they don't look at degrees. Obviously, the closer by degree it is, the more powerful it is. But this is, they're all in the same sign. That's a conjunction in Vedic astrology. So we've got one, the 9th house lord, conjunct with the 10th house lord. That's one tick. The 9th house lord conjunct with the 11th house lord. 2 ticks. We've got Mercury, the 10th house lord, conjunct with the 9th house lord. 3 ticks. Conjunct with the 11th house lord. 4 ticks. So there's 4. He's already got those, all the 4 indicators that we need for him to have the rags to riches rise. So let's keep going. And then we have the 11th house lord in a conjunction with the 10th house lord. 5 ticks. And a conjunction with the 9th house lord. 6 ticks. So he's already got 6 activations here already. I notice as well, I mean, it's in the sign of Capricorn, you know, climbing to the top of the mountain peak, you know, steady work, you know, and he worked hard his whole life with his performance. He never stopped, and sort of burnt him out in the end. So very much Capricorn hard work energy. Just on a different topic, if we were to look in Western astrology, he's got Neptune, planet of higher octave of music, sitting up here in the sign of service, but it's his 10th house of being public recognition. So he really did serve the public through performance and music, with that beautiful, beautiful Neptune that he's got placed there with Neptune has only good aspects to it, only these blue lines, positive, angelic influence there. Here is Elvis's Navamsha chart, and I would say this is quite a good Navamsha. It's not extreme, but it's healthy. Okay, so we've got really only 2 planets out of the visible planets. That's all we're using here. And there's 7 visible planets. We've got 2 that aren't in the best of condition. We've got Venus in fall here in the sign of Virgo, and we know, you know, this is the chart of marriage and relationships. Unfortunately for Elvis, he didn't have a lot of success in that front. Yes, he got married, but it didn't last. He had a number of girlfriends and so on. So Venus in fall, not good. Remember, we don't take a look at all these aspects and things, even though they're given in the harmonic chart. In Vedic astrology, generally speaking, my teachers have indicated that we don't really pay attention to aspects. We can look at house lordships and dignities, of course. So in that case, you know, Venus not the strongest for Elvis here. And we can also see the sun not the best in Gemini. Sun's okay. It's not like sun in Libra is in a full position because it's opposite, as we know, its exaltation sign Aries. But again, the sun's not super duper strong. I wouldn't say it's in exaltation or own dignity or anything like that, obviously in Gemini. But what we do have is the moon popularity in own sign. Fabulous. That's really, really good. We have the moon in his own sign. We have Jupiter in his own sign up here in Sagittarius. That's fantastic as well. Expansion, growth, prosperity, wealth. Yes, wonderful. We've got Mars in exaltation here in Capricorn. That's brilliant as well. We love to see things in their exaltation sign. So there's Mars, 2 in their own sign, 1 in exaltation. Fantastic. Saturn is not exalted or anything, but Saturn does very well in the sign of Taurus. They complementary kinds of energies, sort of plodding and stoic and enduring and so forth. Saturn is okay there. So really what we've got is out of the 7 planets, Mercury, not so flash in the sign of Cancer. But what we've got is 1, 2, 3, I would say 3 really strong, healthy planets in the Navamsha here for Elvis, and a reasonably good planet as well out of the 7. So that to me is positive. It's more positive than not. And so therefore we could consider that to be a bit of a boost or a bit of help to this story that we're looking at in Elvis's chart of his rags to riches story, as we've explored here. So there's so much more I could talk to you about with Elvis's chart, but there are just a couple of examples of utilizing this energy. Here we are with Ernst Wilhelm's software and looking at the color software Mahadasha calculations for Vimshottari. So we see that actually at the time he rose into fame, which was 21 years of age, he was in his Jupiter Rahu, which was obviously very powerful. But then we want to look at 25 years of age. He's in his Saturn Mercury Dasha. So at 25 years of age, his dasha is Saturn. This is the Mahadasha, not the Antardasha, the Mahadasha. And it's Saturn in Aquarius. Fantastic. Saturn's in his own sign. Brilliant energy, strong Saturn dasha. That's the first thing that we see. So let's have a look at the subsequent 4 dashes after the Saturn one, Mahadashas. Mercury. Mercury's in the sign of Capricorn. This is not a bad placement for Mercury. It's very logical. It's very grounded. Mercury does okay in Capricorn, not debilitated, not in fall, none of that. So that's good, we could say. It's not a, super exalted position, but it's good. Mercury is relatively healthy there. Next, we look at his Cato Dasha coming after Mercury. Is it any good? Well, we know how to judge the quality of a Cato or the South Node. And we've got, in this case, we have a waxing moon. Fantastic. Brilliant. And the ruler of Cato, guess what? In its own sign, Saturn. Very strong. Fantastic. So this is an exalted Cato. Yay. So again, another really good dasha there based on the rulership of Mahadashas. And the final one, remember we have to count up to 4 after the dasha we're in at age 25. The final one is Venus. Venus is actually not too bad. Not too bad in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn's ruled by Saturn, and Venus and Saturn are friends. It's not a debilitated placement for Venus to be in Capricorn. So neither Mercury nor Venus are super exalted, but they're good enough to give the good results based on this dasha system. So all in all, we can see that Elvis's chart had some good signs and signatures for definitely rising up from rags to riches. Now, it didn't mean that he had a perfect life. In this example, of course, we know if you've seen the film with Austin Butler, the Baz Luhrmann film, absolutely wonderful film, and those of us who've researched Elvis's life know that his life was certainly quite tragic in many ways. It didn't keep the struggle away. It didn't keep the feeling of entrapment away. In many instances, he was like a monkey in a cage in Vegas performing and couldn't get out of that situation that he was in. But he was very wealthy, and that is what we're looking at here with these signatures, whether a person can rise up from poverty to wealth. For other indicators, other factors in the chart, of course, we have to look at other different things, but that's not what we're looking at in this video. So I hope this video has been interesting and helpful. How many of these signatures of rising up from one class to the next, let's say, do you have in your chart? And is that expressing in your life in any way, shape, or Thank you for joining me for this video, everyone. And don't forget, you can get a free My Money report from me if you purchase the Financial Astrology Masterclass, but only for this week until the 10th of May 2026. Don't miss this golden opportunity to transform your finances. Thank you, dear friends. May you know abundance and true prosperity in your life.